40 minutes into it.
So how much did you guys want to get done today?
Well, I was gonna, like I said, I wanted to do those two, just the first two. But with how long it took for us to just connect, I don't know. Do you guys still want to do both of them?
I'm fine.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, I pull it up again.
So it said they need to be 15 to 30 minutes each.
Yeah, yeah, approximately 15 to 30 minutes should be sufficient for each meeting, is what it says.
Okay.
It says each meeting can be as long as necessary, so though approximately 15 to 30. So, um, I figured this first one kind of wrote up an agenda for us, for things for us to go over. Um, so it wants us to discuss that prep template that we filled out, and then after that, come up with a list of 10 norms of how we're supposed to interact with each other while doing these projects. And then that's it. At least for this
Okay.
first meeting, that's what they want. So,
All right. Which template do we want to talk about? The discussion preparation or the facilitation preparation?
yeah, so that discussion preparation template,
Okay.
it has like those teamwork factors, teamwork strategies, and virtual teamwork strategies.
Yeah.
Okay. I have mine pulled up.
Yeah, me too.
Connect with Bluetooth, make it easier. And honest communications. So that they have the proper resources necessary to complete those tasks. Um, and then ineffective teamwork is only listening to one person's opinion. Um, you know, a lack of communication, so not getting those other opinions out there, having a closed mindset, and then if the resources that are required aren't available to accomplish the tasks that you had set out in front of you. So those are the things I had for teamwork factors. Did you guys have anything different or anything else to add to that?
You're cutting out a little bit on mine. Um, so with my teamwork factors, we're doing the discussion preparation template, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, for me, if I'm just going to add to what I heard you say, sorry if it's been a repeat. There was a second where you're cutting out for me, but it would just be like the two biggest things would be for having that set agenda where we know we all have a goal we're working on, and just kind of having ground rules that would guide us towards that set agenda. And then whoever's facilitating each video would just kind of just make sure that everyone sticks to those ground rules.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I had. I mean, I have having a clear goal in mind for the meeting before you start out, the agenda to kind of outline how your meeting's going to go. I like the idea of having the reward system to keep your team motivated and the team involvement high. Ground rules again. I think that those are important because you kind of set the stage for um, problems. If they occur, you already have a game plan on how to deal with them, and you don't waste any time that way. Some ineffective teamwork. Uh, the opposite of that, not having a clear objective before starting a meeting, not having a layout, and then just ignoring issues as they go on until they escalate to a point where people get emotionally involved or something like that. If you don't have a clear goal or objective in mind and an agenda to follow, it's easy to get lost as you go through the meeting as people tell their stories or whatnot or complain and then that without that agenda, if you get off you don't necessarily, you might lose track of where you were before you went down the rabbit hole of so and so's experience with something or rather. So that's what I had for those.
And with this getting lost, like it kind of reminded me that had like an idea for like having a parking lot, as they put it, where if something is brought up that is outside of that goal for the agenda, it gets put into a parking lot to be discussed another time, and you would just assign people to it. Say, it's a great idea. Let's talk about this another time, and almost just like not even addressing the idea. So that way you can just keep focusing towards the same goal.
Okay. Um, do we want to go over the other parts of this, the teamwork strategies and the virtual teamwork strategies, or?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So that teamwork strategy is what I have down. So the most important strategies that lead to successful teams was the setting of deadlines, understanding the strengths of team members and utilizing them, sharing the load, um, setting up rules or a code of conduct, as we talked about already, kind of those ground rules, and having that open-minded to new ideas or criticism so that your ideas can evolve to become the best thing, not just picking the first thing that becomes available and running with it, but really leaving yourself open for those options of being able to create the best solution for the problem.
Okay. For me, the one of the biggest things that kind of stood out to me is stating your roles. So it's easy, like especially if it's a virtual meeting and you're unfamiliar with the other people, that if they chime in, you understand where they're coming from. So if everybody takes time to state their roles within the group and what they're looking for, it kind of helps with disagreements so that people don't take them personally, which apparently is more likely to happen on virtual meetings. So with those roles, you would be able to kind of have an understanding, a better understanding, and that way it can you can kind of address the situation or maybe fill in where your disagreements are. But at least that way, it's not just like, who is this person, to disagree with me? I don't know who they are, and then check out instead. But it keeps everybody involved and kind of gives a greater, broader understanding of why everyone is in there.
Yeah. um, I have patience. I mean, as we experienced tonight, working in virtual teams, you have technological problems that can happen, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, I just kept thinking about our team. Dan, you're in a different time zone than us, so I'm sitting here thinking that, oh shoot, it's 10 o'clock. I should go to sleep. It's 11 o'clock for you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, I mean, I think patience has a lot to do with virtual teams. Another degree of the patience is like with a virtual team, you can't stand up and go walk into somebody's office and have a face-to-face conversation with them. You have to, um, work through email or text or things like that, and little nuances and tones and stuff like that can get lost inside that text. And then I also hit on kind of what Dan did as far as knowing what your role is. Uh, it kind of boils back down to having a good direction of where you're going, having some goals in mind, everybody knowing what part they play, and that way you don't get a lot of freelancing. If people, if they're not engaged or they don't understand what they're responsible for, then they might go out and do something that may or may not benefit the overall project or the objective that they have. Um, I think that freelancing might be good in some cases, but for the most part, it kind of leads to decrease in productivity. So those are the two things that came to my mind.
Sweet.
All right. I think that's pretty good. That's good to sum up that entire resource that we did. So what we're supposed to do now is to develop a list of 10 common norms for effective teamwork that we agree on, and that we are agreeing to follow as we go throughout the remainder of the project together. We're supposed to identify who it is that comes up with the ideas, or if we all come up with the idea together.
Well, I'm assuming we would all help.
Yeah.
So which norms do you guys want to start off with that pop out immediately? For me, it would be, at the beginning of each meeting to kind of, state the agenda. And I would also say, as number 2, go over any information so everyone's on the same page with information before any discussion even begins.
Yeah, it's a smart idea. I mean, just go over that, having that agenda, that clear path of what the meeting's going to go through helps, so the meeting doesn't just fly all over the place. So you're saying more like have an agenda and then revisiting previous topics that would have been set for follow-up of a previous meeting. Okay.
I kind of like, if you have your agenda and your information sharing, but then maybe we review the competencies that we're required to complete or the criteria for completion on each report. We're just, you know, quick look at the focus, like what we need to keep in mind as we go through to do each project. So as we're looking at the next one to, we start looking at the actual business. We don't get so lost in coming up with a business meeting that we don't meet the criteria for each project.
So keeping that goal of focus, okay. Focus on what it is we need to be accomplishing. Okay.
Yeah.
I would. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, just like that, a norm we can establish, because this is a virtual meeting, is that when we're done speaking, we kind of almost address that we're done or ask for ideas or feedback. So that way we know we don't accidentally talk over each other, or, we can kind of stay focused and know when the thought's over. So that's what I had.
Do we have to use like 10-4?
10-4.
Over an hour.
Over.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Yeah.
I think having a specific time set up to meet is also, a couple days in advance of time, or at least a day set up is important as well. Instead of trying to just do it, really last minute kind of idea. I mean, we had today set up, we had the idea of the time, and then just technology attacked us. But definitely, we should continue to have that we have a time and a day set up for it, and if something comes up, just informing the other team members, trying to reschedule that.
Okay. How many are we at for the norms?
5.
So another we can do is at the beginning of each meeting is set some ground rules. 10-4.
Or revisit those ground rules. I like that.
I think
Uh,
again, just kind of hitting back on, trying to be patient as we go through this whole process. As I was looking through the other deliverable or the other projects, we actually start to look at what the business needs. And when we come up with our plan, I think it's going to require a lot more back and forth communication, and just being patient with each other and being patient with the technology that we have. I think that'll go a long ways over.
I agree with that. I mean, I take it everybody's in, so we have other obligations that are roaming around inside the house. So it's a good one, being patient with each other and obligations.
We can keep the discussion on topic with, and so, or sorry, so keep the discussion on topic, and so every point we make should be towards that agenda. And additionally, keep whoever disagrees should, state why they're disagreeing and then be the first to come up with a solution. Over.
I like that. I was kind of thinking, uh, back to your parking lot. If not being afraid to, if one of us gets off topic or um, starts a tangent or something like that, being able to address that, like saying, this might be a parking lot issue, or back to what Dan was saying about the agenda, just making sure that we're we're sticking to the agenda, we're sticking to our objective, and being conscious that if not that if one of us calls out the other person, but if we just redirect the conversation back to what it's supposed to be.
Obviously, Dan, you're probably going to be recording all 3 of these for us. Is that right?
Yeah, it works.
And then will you be able to share those with the facilitator at the time?
Yeah.
Those specific meetings.
I can put them on my YouTube and just get you guys the links, because you can either upload the video or just send a link to it. But I can just get you the links.
Okay. So, one of those norms that relying on each other's strengths. Obviously, Dan, you know how to get this thing to work. So, and dividing that work so that you're going to record it for us, but obviously we will take our turns facilitating the specific meetings. Um, we'll do that through the remaining 2 meetings that we have set up for it.
Sweet.
One more.
I was kind of thinking if the facilitator, somebody comes up with an idea, they write down, Scriver had this idea. That way, if Dan also comes up with an idea at the same time, that we address both of those before we move on to the next subject, so that we all get a chance to give our 2 cents in the situation.
So have the facilitator be taking the notes just to keep everybody the ideas are addressed as they come about.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so just we and the little things I wrote for them. We want to start with an agenda, kind of revisit previous things that were brought up during the last meeting that we had. Reviewing the required competencies and what's required for the specific meeting that we're doing to make sure we stay on task. Indicate when we finish speaking, either with a over and out 10-4 or asking for feedback. Making sure that we have a time set, both a day and a time, so that we can all be ready when that comes about. Setting ground rules and revisiting the ground rules. Being patient with each other, with technology, understanding that we all have obligations in our lives. Keep our discussions on topic if a disagreement occurs, and if it's not on topic, for we're using that parking lot, or if a disagreement does come up, the person who does come with the disagreement to try to provide a solution. Dividing the workload and relying on others in order to get these recordings passed around to each other, and then the facilitator actively taking notes so that as ideas and discussion points are brought up, that they can all be addressed during the same meeting.
Perfect.
Okay.
Reviewing the criteria for that, we identified the 10 norms for effective teamwork. The 10 norms, the document identifies the team members that contributed to which idea and which ideas were created as a group. The document includes annotations that clearly describe the ideas of the individual team members were revised in order to create the list that the team agreed on. It includes the norms that explicitly support effective visual, virtual teamwork. Common norms for effective teamwork are informed by resources, but not, let's see what that's saying. Teamwork are informed by resources, but original to your team. Includes norms that will promote team effectiveness. So I think one that jumps out at me is the virtual teamwork one. I think a couple of those of our norms stand out as far as having patience telling each other when we're finished speaking, um, and then setting up the deadlines and the times for when we're going to have those meetings. I think that those deal specifically with our virtual environment here. What do you guys think?
Agree 100%.
I agree as well.
Is there any of the other things that I went over? Do you think we need to hit on again?
I don't.
No.
Yeah, I think we're okay too.
Sweet. I'll end that first video right there.
Okay. 10-4 good, buddy.
Sweet. All right. For the second video, so this one's going to be about solving a problem. So it's going to have more actionable feedback. So with Drip and Dry, it's set up as a instant success where the success of the business is already growing too fast. So this project or this video will be about defining the specific problem. And so, do you guys all have the like the data already? It's called the situation today as part of the
Right now.
project resources. So we'll be going over that here shortly. The purpose of this is to define the problem to make sure that we're all on the same page, and then brainstorm ideas to come up with a solution for that problem. We should come up with at least one solution each according to the project resources. And then at the end, we'll gather enough information so we can write a memo to the owner of Drip and Dry what the problem is, what factors lead towards that problem, and then how we would move forward with that solution to fix that problem. So before we even begin that, it's important to have be on the same page with what the problem is, because if one person has a different idea of what the problem is, then the solutions they come up with won't match and they won't be congruent with the actual problem. So with the data, there's some observations by Carrie. So there's not enough seating within the facility. There's kind of rush hours between lunch and dinner. It's becoming chaotic when it used to be quiet. Customers have said that they're concerned with what Drip and Dry is turning into. So they're kind of going away from what made Drip and Dry popular in the first place. Many customers are struggling to find parking. People who order food at Drip and Dry often neglect to pick up their finished laundry in a timely fashion. So kind of wasting time there. Drip and Dry is not achieving maximum potential revenue, and the line for all food and drinks is extremely long during peak hours. There are some constraints that we have to consider with our solutions. So we can't really deviate much from the original business plan of having coffee in the laundromat. We have a 2 months revenue of budget to address the problem, which is $38,000. And we need to appeal to a wide range of customers, both old and new. So we need to keep new customers coming in while appeasing the regular customers as well. And we need to maintain a comfortable and relaxing atmosphere. Other considerations, just some background information. The wireless internet is free for all patrons. There was a poll conducted. 1/8 of the customers said that if Drip and Dry looks busy, they don't even go in. And people who purchase one beverage per day, on average, just stay for about 20 minutes. People who stay longer than 3 hours typically purchase one beverage. So part of the problem is that people are extending their stay with only purchasing one beverage. Approximately 1/3 of the seating is occupied by customers who stay longer than 3 hours. Three quarters of the customers learned about drip and dry this month, so it's a fairly new customer demographic. So it's which would also should suggest how quickly it's booming. And 1/2 of the customers learned about drip and dry this month from a news report. So as that study shows, there's numerous problems here. Some solutions will probably have multiple effects on other things as well. For me, I think the problem is mostly going to lie in patrons extending their stay. That's cutting back on potential revenue. It's also turning away patrons who may be coming in but seeing it's busy. But with each solution, we need to come up with not only the solution, but address how that would actually fix the problems once we define it. So I'm kind of thinking for a definition, it's mostly going to be with the patrons who extend their stay. But what do you guys think?
My first impression is, yeah, I think people are spending too long there, and then also it's kind of some growing pains that's going on. 3/4 of their customers learning about drip and dry over the last month, and half of their customers learning about it in the new segment. That just reminds me of the deliverable of the guy that made the hoodies. They had like a 2-year plan, and then somebody you go and they advertise how awesome these hoodies are, and then all of a sudden, they're making like 300% growth or something like that. I don't know if during their plan, if Drip and Dry's plan, if like they were planning on being featured in the news segment or whatnot, but it seems that they they've gotten a lot of people really fast. 3/4 of them um, in a month. So I mean, you have the considerations up top where the older customers, which should uh, only be about a quarter of them, um, they were around previous to that, and then it basically it grows substantially within 30 days. Um, and then the times were another thing that stuck out to me. Those are like pretty like you said, Dan, like between like maybe like right before lunch, after work, things like that. So I think it might be a combination of people staying too long and then them just not being ready, equipped to handle such a high volume of people coming in.
All right, Lance, what would you say is how would you define is the problem here?
So, other considerations where it says people, their poll they did, people who stay longer than 3 hours typically purchase one beverage, but they also have another thing where the poll put people who purchase one beverage per day stay for 20 minutes. So, I mean, if that's the case, you're having some people who are buying a beverage and leaving, then you're having some people who are staying way longer than 3 hours. If it brings that, well, maybe, yeah, it brings that average to 20 minutes. So, yeah, you probably have a group of people who are staying way too long. And then those growing pains, because I was thinking that maybe it was just maybe a staffing, if they were to increase their staffing during those hours, they could get people through quicker. But as it's saying, there's many customers are walking there and they still can't find parking. So there's just more people coming in than the building that they are in can currently handle. So the advertising that they did was very effective. brought in a lot more people than they were probably expecting to gain. And then, yeah, they have customers who are staying way too long. Now, why are the customers staying that long? I don't know. I don't frequent coffee houses or places like that, so I couldn't say what they're hanging out there to do. But I think that, yeah, that's, I agree with you, Dan. I agree with Scribe as well that they grew way too quick for what they were expecting. They don't have the space. The building's not what they need. And then they have customers who are just chilling. They're just hanging out inside the laundromat for too long and make it harder for other customers to come in.
Okay. So Tyler, Lance discussed the facility itself with space and with the growing pains, maybe they didn't have enough seating. Do you think space would be part of the problem or part of the problem on why we can get more patrons in?
Yeah, I mean, there's another spot in there that says that they during the survey that if customers, they come in, it looks busy, they choose not to go in there. So, I mean, they're definitely during those times filling up all the space that they have. Um, so, working within our means here, I don't know if we could get more space or more chairs or more whatever, and stay within that $38,000 for addressing the problem. I think you kind of start a little least invasive and then move from there. Maybe promote like when your slow times are, maybe do a happy hour time to try and get those peak times down. You have your regulars, maybe they have a little bit more leeway, maybe they'd be a little more um interested in coming in during times that aren't busy. That's kind of what I was thinking there. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what you can do with their space, besides optimizing how much you have in there. Definitely can't get a new building, can't do a remodel or anything like that. So being smart with what you got and then trying to spread that increased um, frequency of customers out, not during those busy times.
I agree that space is an issue, and I would say some of the $38,000 budget should go towards uh, additional seating. We could look at things like seating both within the building and outside. Some people might want to have their coffees outside. But so far, just to recap, we've all agreed that uh, patrons staying too long and only purchasing one drink is an issue. It's part of the problem for our growth and maximum revenue. That there are growing pains. This has happened too suddenly. So with that, there's different things. That's kind of why we have this agenda here today. With these growing pains, it kind of, the business wasn't ready for such an explosive growth, and then having the space is also part of the problem. So, is there anything you guys would have to address for the growing pains itself? Do you guys feel it's like a training issue? Maybe they don't know how to handle it, or anything like that that can be prevented or could have helped prevent this?
I don't think in terms of like marketing thing, it's a fantastic thing. Your marketing was very effective. So I don't think you can blame that. Nobody ever expects their marketing to do that. I think what they weren't planning for was people coming in and then just hanging out for multiple hours. I think that's what they weren't planning on. the word got out, people are coming in, but the amount of time people are choosing to spend in the building, I don't think they were planning on that.
Okay. So do we have a consensus that patrons taking too long and a space issue are the main problem here?
Agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So Tyler, you were already talking about a happy hour to help address, some of those slower times, maybe evening out um, some, the flow of patrons into the business. I had an idea. So with the $38,000, I would take it and spend it mostly on the seating and the chairs, trying to maximize the amount of people that can come in, and also maybe even dividing it up between patrons who are just there for coffee, and maybe have some that are just exclusive to those using the laundromat, to kind of make sure that we're using both, the laundromat and the coffee. So you wouldn't want to drive away patrons who want to come in for the laundry, but they see so many people just drinking coffee and hanging out that they don't actually use the machines, because then those machines cost money and they're just sitting there and taking up space. But in the survey, or in the information, it was determined that the internet is free. I was thinking, with some of the money, we could put in software to the router where, anytime you purchase a beverage or come in to do laundry, you can get some sort of voucher, which buys you an X amount of time, but it's a limited, finite time, maybe a couple of hours for laundry. And if you get a coffee, it's an additional hour each. And so that way, it's still a coffee and laundry business. We're still sticking to the main business plan, but people are less likely to just hang out all day and take up seats. Would there be anything that would prevent that from being a good idea?
No, that was actually the same idea I was having, that the purchase of a beverage would give you that internet time. So you're looking, I was thinking putting that money in. So it's like every beverage you purchase gives you an hour of the Wi-Fi, and then utilizing the machines. I mean, we have the study, we we have the time on how long it takes to run those machines. That you get a voucher for that free Wi-Fi while you're running the machines. That way, people aren't just hanging out, or if they are hanging out, they're making purchases. They're increasing your revenue without just taking up space. Um, I can see the only downside I can see to that is if people have started to use the building as like a hangout location, it could potentially drive them away because the Wi-Fi is no longer free for them to just bum off of. But I do not see that to be a very negative outcome to that, because I mean, you start cutting down on those people who are just hanging out, you're going to bring it. I mean, you're already losing 1/8 of your customers during those peak times, anyways. You'll probably gain them back if you get rid of the bums.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a smart move if you're gonna have people there hanging out. Um, if they want to be there for 10 hours and they want to use the Wi-Fi, well, then they got to buy 10 drinks, and that way that you're sure you might only get one customer, but he's making 10 purchases. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one. It's a smart way to do it. And then again, if you don't want to hang out for that long, you hang out for an hour, and then you leave, and um, you do your laundry, you get that finished. Um, and you kind of just kick him out without having to kick him out. And I liked the idea that you had, Dan, as far as segregating, kind of the laundry area and the coffee shop area, so people are aware. That way, if you go there to do your laundry, you see that all the machines are open, and then people are hanging out in the coffee shop area. You can go do your laundry, or vice versa. Um, I think that would you know instead of just people loitering in the building for 3 hours in an unprotected spot or an unreserved spot, you add a little bit of structure there, you add a little bit of spacing. I think that's a good move there.
All right, Lance, do you have any additional ideas?
Um, just looking through some of the other observations, um, saying that people who order food not picking up their finished laundry in a timely fashion. I know we talked about segregating, people who are doing laundry and those who are there for like the coffee and the food. I feel like there's a lack of information that if we had a little bit more to know that during those peak times at 11 to 3, that 5 to 8, is that mainly because people are coming in for food, or is there also a large amount of laundry being done? But other than those small issues I have with the lack of information, I don't have anything else to add to that.
Okay, so moving forward, just to review where we're at. So we've defined the problem as the patrons extending their stay, preventing further business, and hindering profits. And additionally, the facility, the way it's set out, is also limiting how many patrons we can have a day. We've defined an explanation for the factors contributing to the problem. So, the patrons staying too long, we're trying to incentivize or at least profitize the Wi-Fi, and to make, so at least if they're there, they're paying, and then also having the laundromat segregated into both sections. So, maybe if you're just there to do laundry, the coffee area is busy, you still come in. We've gone over potential solutions to the problem. And so then this would just need to be put into a memo, so as a team, it says we can put it into a memo, but I don't know how we would do that other than just typing it. I could just take these ideas and type it up, and have that submitted. Um, just to kind of recap the constraints. One of the business ideas for a booming business is to, stay to your bit, stick to your model. If it's working, don't break it, or don't fix what's not broken. Do any of these solutions take away from who Drip and Dry really is? Do you feel?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
a place you can go have coffee and do your laundry, and I think that's kind of what they're aiming for.
Okay, sweet. So with the deadlines, I can get this memo typed up. When would you guys like to meet again for our final video?
Um, I know we kind of tentatively talked about tomorrow. If we do tomorrow, it would have to be, um, let's see, I gotta driving to Salt Lake from like 7 until probably 9. So to get checked in the hotel, it'd be like 10, somewhere around there. I could do um, earlier, like 6 o'clock, something like that.
I'll if my flight isn't canceled due to the weather, if it is, I'll be available all day, obviously. If not, I'll be flying to Salt Lake around noon, and even I'll be at the airport probably around 10, even 10 a.m., which would be 11 a.m. your time, and then I probably won't be available again until the night. And then I could do this from a hotel. I think our meetings end every night at around 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And then, I I return Wednesday, so I'll be flying out Wednesday night, but then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm free whenever needed.
I'm available whenever tomorrow. If we want to do it tomorrow, I'm open all day. I'm not leaving my house.
So, do you think it would be too much to do it at the hotel, Tyler?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think they have free Wi-Fi and whatnot. I think it should be fine.
Okay. So, should we plan on tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably
What
like 9:30, 10.
mountain time?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm good with that. I'll type up the memo with the information that we used here and get you guys the links to the video.
Cool.
Cool. I can't remember where I'm the team. What is it? The the coordinator. I think I have to submit the teamwork. Can you guys submit any teamwork? Do you have the option when
No,
you
we
submit
can.
projects? Okay. So
Okay.
when you guys do your things, just send them to me and I will submit them. So
Okay.
Lance, if you want to do your 10 norms, submit that to me. Um, I'm going to be submitting my individual work here in like maybe the next 15 minutes. So we'll just get that submitted. Um, we won't be able to submit any of the work for the next project until this first project is completed. Um, but then Dan, when you finish your memo, just send that to me and
Okay.
I'll put that on. It looks like we need to do emails to for feedback on the two people that have facilitated meetings so far. Um, you're supposed to write that email, submit it, and then after it's been approved, you give it to the person. So, like, I'll write an email about both you guys, and those have to be approved before I forward those on to you, and then we can worry about this the third project thing. The third project will make a PowerPoint talking about what our game plan is for this. Um, yeah, we'll bust that out tomorrow, and then looks like you'll have to fill out a facilitation reflection form for that third project. But then the third project, you'll submit your video. Um, I'll submit the slides, and then you'll submit your reflection facilitation reflection. So
Okay.
does that all sound good?
Nope.
Info.
Cool. Awesome.
So
Uh,
9:30 tomorrow. Correct.
yeah.
We'll spend half an hour trying to get it to connect again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Got it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.
I
Yeah. Hope see you tomorrow, Dan.
Yep, hopefully.
Yeah.